Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, the place where I talk everything horror, old and new. Now, if this is your first time here, then please don't forget to hit that like, share and subscribe button. Okay, my first video of 2024 is going to be based around the Final Destination movies, which I just friggin' love. I even enjoy the weaker entries in the Final Destination universe, and I'm very excited for the up-and-coming Final Destination 6. But while we wait for this new installment, I am going to concentrate on the first 5 movies and pick out my top 10 favourite death scenes. So strap yourselves in and let's get this show on the road. Coming in at number 10 is Samantha Lane's death from Final Destination 4. Now, I know, Final Destination 4 isn't officially its name, it's just kind of named The Final Destination, but that is how I'm going to address this movie in this video. So, Final Destination 4 is considered one of the weaker entries in the movie, but I still love it, and I love Samantha's death scene. Samantha goes to a hairdresser's for like a last minute appointment that she's late for, but the staff members, they do reluctantly squeeze her in. I mean, they're not happy about it, but they do it. The whole scene teases us with a loose chair and some scissors close to the eyeballs, making us think that those scissors are definitely going to be the culprit for this kill scene. However, it isn't until after Samantha has finished having her haircut and she's paid for her session, this is where a man outside who is mowing the lawn actually ends up clipping a stone or a rock, and it causes the rock to come flying towards Samantha, and the rock goes straight through her head, through her eyeball, killing her instantly. Now, what makes this moment, ironic is that it's actually Samantha's children who end up throwing these stones and these rocks that land in the grass, meaning it was actually Samantha's children who unintentionally caused her death, or at least set the wheels in motion. At number 9, we have Candice Hooper, Final Destination 5. Now, for me personally, Final Destination 5 is definitely the weaker film. That's just my opinion. And, it doesn't mean that I don't like the movie, because it does have some brilliant death scenes, like Candice Hooper. Candice is running in a gymnastic competition, and to be fair, what we see in the movie is pretty good, but her death scene, of course, occurs in the gym while she's doing some training, and the build-up to this death scene, it really has you on the edge of your seat. We see a tiny little screw fall out from the fan above her, and then it ends up landing down on the balancing beam that Candice is using, and you just know that someone is going to end up stepping on it. However, it isn't Candice. It's one of her teammates that ends up standing on it, and her teammate, she ends up falling over and she knocks over that powder stuff, the one that gymnastics use. Well, this powder goes into Candice's face while she is swinging on a high beam bar, and it completely blinds her, causing her to let go because she probably needs to scratch it out of her eyes. But because she ends up letting go of the high swing, she ends up landing on the ground, breaking her spine and her legs, and she ends up in one hell of a mess and then dies from her horrific injuries. Number 8 now, and we have Tim Carpenter in Final Destination 2, which is definitely one of my favourite sequels in this franchise. Tim is definitely one of the younger characters in the whole of these movies who ends up dead, and, as usual, the build-up to his death scene is done in a really clever way. Tim goes to see the dentist, which, already is just terrifying. While he's at the dentist, he's given a load of gas and air, while there are these pigeons flying into the dentist dentist's window, causing the dentist guy to leave for a moment and then leaving Tim alone while under the influence of the gas. Now, while Tim is pretty much off his face and staring into space, one of these rubber toys above him ends up falling and lands in his mouth. It's those rubber toys that they have above you to keep little ones happy. Anyway, it lands in Tim's mouth and it starts to choke him really slowly. Now, Tim is very high on this gas and he can't really move or do anything. He's pretty much paralyzed, and for a moment there we think that Tim is about to meet his maker with a rubber toy. Okay, that sounds a bit wrong. Luckily, one of the dentist team members comes in and pulls out this rubber toy from Tim's mouth. However, as we all know, death always returns with a vengeance, and while Tim is leaving the dentist, he decides to chase and scare these bunch of pigeons. Don't know why, but he does. This causes the pigeons to fly above a construction worker, and then this causes the construction worker to knock one of his levers, causing a huge, heavy glass pane to fall on top of Tim, completely crushing him and squashing him to death instantly. At number 7, we have Isaac Palmer from Final Destination 5. Another great death scene here that really gives you the creeps and makes you feel a little bit uneasy because Isaac, oh god, he ends up going to this massage place in the hopes for an erotic massage. However, he ends up having a full acupuncture session. You know those things where, they place all those little pins and needles all over your body? Yeah, not for me, but Isaac, oh god, he ends up in one. Once all of the little pins are in his body, the lady that's doing it, she ends up leaving him alone to sleep for 30 minutes. Now, while he is alone, a little small fire erupts, and Isaac, he tries to call out for help, but he ends up tumbling off his bench and lands face down with all of those pins and needles going, inside his body. After a small little explosion, Isaac is thrown to the wall, and he ends up breathing a small sigh of relief, thinking, oh, I'm okay. That is until one of the Buddha statues gives way off a shelf above Isaac, comes down and falls on top of Isaac's head, crushing his head into a little pulp. At number 6, we have Hunt Winoski in Final Destination 4. Now, this is actually a terrible, gross way to die. I mean, Hunt, he is this rich guy in the movie who goes around strutting his stuff, sleeping with any woman that he wants, and he's just basically a little bit of an arsehole throughout the whole movie. Hunt has this lucky coin that he ends up losing at an outdoor public swimming pool, and he dives in to try and retrieve it. However, the pool drain has accidentally been activated, meaning that it's starting to suck all of the water in. Now, Hunt ends up being sucked by this drain at the bottom of the swimming pool and is trapped underwater, and it's his bum that's getting sucked through. Now, this ends up causing the drainage motor to struggle and struggle until eventually the drain ends up sucking all of Hunt's organs out through his asshole, through a drain system, and then it comes bursting out the other end, and all of Hunt's organs end up on the ground for everyone to see. Now, it is not a very pleasant way to go. However, I can see the reasons why the writers and the makers of the movie decided to, off Hunt in this way. I mean, he was an asshole character, and they end up dying through his asshole. We have one of the original characters now in the first Final Destination, and that is Terry Chaney at my number 5 spot, and it is a brilliant jump scare that I'm sure we all remember. Now, Terry's boyfriend Carter, he ends up having a fight with main character Alex just outside a cafe. Now, once the fight ends, amicably, Terry ends up delivering this big speech that ends up with her saying, if you want to waste your life beating the shit out of Alex every time you see him, then you can just drop fucking dead. The very second Terry finishes saying this, she is run down and hit by a very, very fast moving bus, and she is killed instantly. It might not be as creative as some of the other deaths on this list, but it's definitely one that really catches you off guard. Number 4 now, and it is Kat Jennings from Final Destination 2. Oh, I loved with Kat's character. There was just something about her character that I just really liked, and I was gutted when she was killed. Kat's death is very similar to the previous entry where it really catches you off guard, or at least it did for me. Now Kat, she's involved in a car accident with a few of the other characters, and she ends up trapped in this car with a huge PVC pipe sticking through the back of her chair, just missing her head. She seems very lucky, doesn't she? Well, when the rescue men arrive to try and get her out, one of the rescue men ends up using this hydraulic tool to try and cut open the car. Now Kat, she ends up politely asking the rescue guys if they can do it a little bit quieter. Then the rescue guy ends up cracking a joke and saying that he will just stick it onto quiet mode. He then proceeds to ram it even harder into the car, and this causes the airbag inside the car to activate, and it causes Kat's head to be impaled by that huge PVC pipe and killing her instantly. At number 3, and we actually have a double death scene, and I am indeed talking about Ashley and Aislinn in Final Destination 3, which is also another awesome sequel. Now, this is another classic moment that a lot of fans will remember very well. Ashley and Aislinn end up going on the sunbeds together. And when I say together, I mean 2 separate sunbeds, but they just happen to be in the same room. Now, one of them ends up bringing a drink into the sunbed room, which ends up dripping onto this machine, and it causes this machine to malfunction, and then, you know, the sunbeds, they start going hotter and hotter and hotter. When the sunbeds reach an unbearable temperature for the girls, one of them goes to lift up the sunbed. However, a shelf on the wall ends up coming down, and it ends up going in between both sunbeds, and it ends up trapping the 2 girls, meaning that, you know, whenever they go to push the roof up, they cannot get out. The sunbeds then continue to rise in temperature, and literally it starts to cook the girls alive. And we see the burns appearing all over the skins, and then the sunbeds, they end up exploding into flames, and literally the 2 girls burn to death. It's a really great death scene, and it definitely scared the hell out of audiences all around the world over the safety of sunbeds. Just missing out on the top spot at number 2, and we have another original character from the first Final Destination movie. It is indeed Todd Wagner, who, in my opinion, is definitely one of the more heartbreaking death scenes in all of these movies. Now, Todd is Alex's best friend, and as we all know, Alex and his friend survive a plane explosion. Now, when death comes calling for Todd ends up dying in a more relatively believable freak accident, which is why I think this is slightly higher up on today's list. Todd ends up slipping on some water in the bathroom that's been leaking from the toilet, and then he ends up slipping into the bathtub. However, there is this clothesline hanging, you know, in the bathtub, and it ends up coiled and wrapped around Todd's throat. Due to his wet feet from the shampoo and the shower gels falling into the bathtub, the situation just gets worse for him, and Todd, he's unable to get any grip on his feet, and he's just slipping and sliding around in the bathtub, causing the clothes wire to wrap even tighter and tighter around his throat. He can't call for help, but he can't save himself, and Todd ends up dying from asphyxiation, while his family are in another part of the house. And at my number 1 spot today is Nora Carpenter from Final Destination 3. And the very reason why Nora is at my number 1 spot is because I am just a little bit scared of elevators. So this one is definitely the more scarier one for me. Now, Nora, she is Tim's mum, and after Tim is killed earlier on in the movie by that falling piece of glass, Nora, well, she's in a very depressive mood for the rest of her time in the movie. At one point, the main characters, they're all together and they're trying to organize a plan to try and save themselves from death, but Nora, she don't care. If it is her time to go so she can be back with his son, then so be it. However, Nora is about to learn a valuable lesson. You gotta be careful what you wish for. Now, Nora, she ends up in this elevator with some creepy old guy with coat hooks and hangers. Now, one of the other characters, he thinks he has a premonition, thinking that Nora is about to be murdered by a guy with hooks. Now, when he ends up ringing Nora while she's in the elevator, she ends up freaking out, thinking that this creepy old guy in the lift is about to murder her. However, Nora gets her hair tangled in one of these hooks, and as the elevator door opens, she goes to run out. But because her hair is tangled, she ends up getting caught between the doors closing. So her head is one side, her body is on the other. And then the lift decides to go back. Nora ends up being dragged up the doors as the lift is moving, and then the lift jams because, you know, Nora is stuck in the lift. But it continues to keep pulling and pulling until eventually Nora's head is ripped off her body. It is indeed a horrific death scene, and you even hear Nora's final words saying that she doesn't want to die. A very memorable, scary death scene in my opinion, and it's one that really sticks with me. Okay, so that was my top 10 favorite Final Destination death scenes. Let me know in the comments box below what you thought of today's video, what you thought of my list, and are there any other death scenes that you think I might have missed out on? Let me know everything, guys, in the comments box below. Okay then, guys, thank you all for watching today's video. Make sure you smash that subscribe button, stay safe out there, and I will see you all again very, very soon.